Don't be alarmed. The quasi-shimmering light before you is a trans-dimensional gateway to other worlds, other voices, other thoughts, and other realities. Up feels like down, and down feels like the number 7 on a Wednesday morning. Don't worry. That quivering, blood-boiling sensation under your eyebrows is all a part of the charm. Welcome to the PCC Multiverse.
And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. It's Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for joining us. Truly appreciate you doing so. Make sure you like and subscribe, all that good stuff, all these content makers like us. Like I've been making a lot of content, that's for sure, over the years. And, you know, they always tell you, go ahead, remind them, like and subscribe. 5-star review. Yeah, exactly. 5-star review, all that stuff. I hope you do it out there because it really does help the channel if you do. And if you do, it is sincerely appreciated as always. And to the radio stations that go ahead and play our show, even after all these years, we are immensely grateful for you doing so. And to those that are listening on the radio show, that on radio stations out there worldwide that are doing so, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, whether you're listening, watching, what have you. Just appreciate you taking the time out of your day for checking us out here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without the good man, indeed, the guy who is known as the Pop Culture Guru out there. Indeed, it is, of course, my good friend, the man, the myth, the legend himself, TJ Johnson. TJ, glad to have you back in the house. Not the house of the mouse, because we talked about that before as far as if we were running the house of the mouse, but great to have you here. Looking forward to a good weekend of pop culture, as always, my friend.
Gerald, as always, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Now, we don't have a big movie on tap, with all apologies to the seemingly, and I should actually feel this towards Josh because a huge Guy Ritchie mark, as they would say in the wrestling business. Guy Ritchie, gosh, another month goes by, another Guy Ritchie directed thing comes up, because I believe it's In the Gray that I think is with Henry Cavill, Jake Gyllenhaal, and the fact that it'll be on streaming here in a month will tell you how well it will do at the box office. But the fact is, there isn't any really big name to talk about as far as this weekend. It'll be interesting to see what the hold is for Mortal Kombat, what Devil Wears Prada 2 will do as it gets closer to $500 million worldwide. Michael, will that eventually take over Project Hail Mary for the number 2 picture of the year? And then, of course, will Project Hail Mary get over 700 million itself? And also, as well, the Super Mario Galaxy movie, will that reach $1 billion? Those are questions that probably won't be answered until after Memorial Day. So this is kind of like a filler week, a buffer week per se, as far as the movie theaters. But there's still so much to talk about because early next week, there's going to be a lot of things that are going as far as the pop culture world. And I wasn't sure we were going to be able to cover it on the Monday show. So I wanted to make sure we got you covered here. The biggest thing, I think, of all next week is The Boys ending its run on Amazon. Actually, they're going ahead with what they're talking about with putting it out in theaters. Speaking of theaters, actually, before the Memorial Day weekend comes out, they're actually going to do a one-night showing in theaters of the last episode simultaneously that they show it on Amazon Prime. This season, I haven't seen it yet. I'm about ready to go ahead and re-up my Amazon Prime and then cram it for the last episode. But I had a conversation earlier today as I record this with Matt John, who does an NBA show with me, and he was sounding like the rest of the internet community about this last season not being everything that he wanted it to be as we head into the at this point, he just said he wants it done. It just wants it done. He just wanted it done at this point. Your thoughts on The Boys? I want to look at it from a historical figure because in a historical standpoint, it's a streaming show that probably has taken things farther and more consistently than any other show has ever done in this on television, whether it's streaming or broadcast or cable. They've done things on that show graphically, and I guess just way of just speaking in frankness or just doing things in graphic nature that quite frankly we have rarely ever seen in any type of medium. Your thoughts, my friend? But all that's aside, for 4 seasons, actually the first three, fourth season, okay, it's really done a great job to that it included all this graphicness, but it included great storytelling with a great antagonist in Homelander and a great protagonist, Carl Urban's character as well. So with that said, your thoughts on The Boys as it comes to an end? It seems like very few shows ever stick the landing. I mean, Game of Thrones had people up in an uproar. Lost, people still remember the Lost ending to this day. It rarely seems like a show can stick the landing, and I'm still hoping, despite the up and down nature of season 5, that they'll be able to do it here.
Yeah, a couple things. I think it's very, very difficult to stick the landing for a lot of these shows, especially such long running series as The Boys, as Game of Thrones, as insert long running series here. It's very difficult. And the reason I say this is because for it to be long lasting as it has, The Walking Dead is another one that comes to mind, even though it hasn't technically ended yet. For you to be able to stick that landing, one, for it to have been on long enough, because people really care about the property. And in caring about the property, it's very natural that you are not going to be able to please everybody. And I think the problem when you get to these is that there are so many different hands in the pot, so to speak, so many different cooks in the kitchen, and everybody's got an opinion or a thought piece or a think piece, if you will, about what should happen, what might happen, what might not happen, if it's possible. Like it becomes very convoluted. It really does. And with that being said, people become very, very passionate and very, very impassioned about certain aspects of certain things. I can tell you 105 different things I would have done for the Game of Thrones finale. I can I can go on and on and on about that, and I was very vocal about that at one point. And I've since calmed down and cooled off about it.
Have
But
you? Have you?
yeah, I mean, I was until you brought up Game of Thrones, and then it all just came running back. It just all came back. But I guess to answer the initial question, I haven't watched this season yet, and from what I've heard, from what I've read, from what I've taken about, I think it's pretty par for the course when it comes to these long running series that are trying to wrap it up. I don't think I've ever seen a long running series wrap it up in a nice, neat little bow that had everybody happy. I think the one that may have came the closest was probably The Sopranos. And I know people are gonna be like, "What do you mean?" Because it left it on such a cliffhanger that you couldn't really be mad. You couldn't be upset about it. It left you room to think, and they were like, "We're done, and we're done. Like we're walking away from it." So I think they had the fortitude to just stick to it and nail that landing, so to speak, and allow you to create whatever scenario in your own mind. Um, but it gets difficult. And so I can only imagine, and again, I haven't seen the season of The Boys. I haven't seen the season yet, but I have to imagine that it can't be easy. It's a loved IP, um, and people have invested a lot of time, and a lot of viewer dollars and hours spent watching, and there's an investment on that, and people want to feel like that investment paid off, and it gets difficult, man, and it gets tricky. Again, we even look at things like Mass Effect and how they had a difficult time sticking the landing off of a three game series. So it's not an easy task to do, and my hat goes off to a lot of the producers and a lot of the writers and the people that are behind the scenes, the creative directors, those creative teams that have to try to put that together and try to find a way to, even if you can't appease everybody, maybe give everybody a little bit of what they're looking for without completely going on one side versus the other. It's a balancing act that I'm grateful that I don't have to do, and I'm grateful that I don't have to make the decisions on, because you're not going to be able to please everybody. So I think as long as and we'll be able to see what the final product, as long as it feels true to the characters. And I think that's where a lot of these things tend to go wrong. And again, we're looking at, the easiest example for me is Game of Thrones. As long as their endings feel true to who they've been throughout the entire continuity of the show, then I think you have to be able to take the good with the bad, and you have to be able to accept that, as long as there's no complete under the rug, pull from under the rug moment, a la Lost, where it's like, oh, it was in a church. Like, come on, like, don't do that to people. Like, make sure that it's been, if there's something that's been building up, don't just have a out of left thing to make us completely feel like everything that we've invested in the show means nothing, because it really was just, purgatory, or they're in limbo. Let it be worthwhile, but let the characters' actions truly be representative of who they've been, and not just some random thing to do because we decided to turn this person good or turn this person bad, and now they have to respond to this. Like, let it be something that happens that we've seen coming from a mile away, if you will. It just has to feel true to the character.
I'm interested. I'm very interested to see how this one will end, because again, I've already seeing the thoughts online for people, thoughts I interact with people, and as far as even my relatives have told me that, yeah, just I'm not sure I'm digging this final season of season 5. It's all over the place seemingly, and of course they're killing off characters too beforehand. Of course, they have to, seemingly, with the type of show that it is. But I just wanted to go ahead and make sure that Homelanders, I think everybody we only care about Billy Butcher, Carl Urban's character, and Homelander, Anthony Starr's character. It seemingly comes down to everybody. Everything else is collateral. Everything else is collateral damage. Whatever happens to them, Starlight does, Black Noir. Okay, whatever. What they really care about is, does Billy Butcher end up getting and killing off Anthony Starr's Homelander character? Because again, the one dynamic through all this has been how good a villain Homelander has been. Anthony Starr was a relatively unknown actor before he got this role, and he made it his own. And he's done a sensational job of doing it. Carl Urban, getting to speak in his true Australian accent, or actually it's a slight tweak on his Australian accent, I think, when you listen to it, because I've listened to him in interviews, and it's actually a little bit lower key, but still he's able to basically be more of a character that's wild, that's different than what he's played in the past, as far as McCoy and whatnot. It's just seemingly been those two characters they've always taken care of throughout the 5 seasons of this show. And they haven't always taken care of everybody else. They haven't always made their plot lines good, but they've always focused in on those two characters. And I think for me, it'll be satisfying enough if I see a satisfying end, one way or the other. Billy Butcher or Homelander get killed off in the final, but one of them has to go ahead and meet their maker before the end is done.
I think so. And again, I think as long as it's done in a way that still honors or respects who they are as a character, I think I'd be okay with any of the above. One of those two, or even if they both find a way to off each other, but as long as how it plays out, it stays true to who they are and what they've done, then I think anybody would be at least satisfied with that aspect. Of course, again, you're never going to please everybody. So you have to kind of get over it. You're not going to please everybody. So once you kind of accept that, okay, well, let me at least, the only thing I can do is stay true to these characters. And if you stay true to those characters, then I think everyone else will be able to kind of follow suit. That was the biggest thing with the Game of Thrones, that characters turned and characters had different allegiances and different thoughts, and it kind of just came out of left field, and it didn't feel true to a lot of those characters. So as long as you can maintain that, I think you'll be fine.
We'll see, my friend. But again, how many shows actually end up sticking the landing? Yeah. So we'll see. I could tell you it will probably be a very out there and crazy ending for the boys if everything holds true. I mean, they've done things on that show that no other show had approached at that point in time. And they went through lines and crossed lines that I don't think any other show will ever get noted for, as The Boys has. But now other shows have tried to cross that line as well. So it's not, 5 seasons later, it's not as big of a deal what they did. Or did you see what they did on The Boys? Or what? It's not that big of a deal as what they're doing now than what they did
Yeah.
then in seasons 1 and 2. The Whale, for instance, I think that was probably and the scene where all the hero, I can't say it because it's public radio that we would be on, but the hero party, for lack of a better term, that's something that was different and out there and had yet not been really conceived of before that time. But I'll just say that. But yeah, now that a lot of these shows are now pushing the limits of what broadcast or cable or even streaming television can put out there, it's still the fact that they owe a lot to The Boys and what they did and the buttons they can push. And Seth Rogen, who is part of the executive producer team of this seemingly, sausage party, The Boys, I believe Invincible as well. Yeah. Not surprising that he's going to places not many shows ever go.
It's really not. And I remember watching a lot of that stuff that Seth Rogen is done. And yeah, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me in the least bit. Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. If anybody would have done it, it'd have been it'd have been Seth Rogen. Absolutely. 100%.
So we'll see what happens, my friend, but it is the finale coming up early next week for The Boys. It is going to be available and it's selected theaters around the country and, of course, Amazon Prime. If you have thoughts on season 5, how's it been for you? Please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. My friend, you did want to hear my thoughts on Mortal Kombat 2. It is, like I said, in the second weekend in theaters. I'm not expecting great things from it. I'm not expecting a great hold. We've seen great holds for Devil Wears Prada 2. We've seen a great hold, fantastic holds for Project Hail Mary and Michael. I do not expect that for Mortal Kombat 2. I'll just say that. But it wasn't a expensive movie. Speaking of Carl Urban, he was probably the top paid actor in this film. It's only an $80 million budget for something like that. It probably will tap out probably around 100 to $150 million worldwide at the box office. So it probably will break even by the time it heads to streaming. But does that mean a Mortal Kombat 3 is going to come out? I saw the film. I told you about it when I saw it. I thought it was, again, I'm being very generous when I gave it a 7 out of 10. And I think I'm being very generous when I gave it a 7 out of 10. You have to be very easygoing when you watch this film because it does just seem like it's a generic popcorn film, but it does have some good battle scenes. I will give it that. As far as the fighting is concerned, it does have they have a lot of fights that I think that compare favorably to the original Mortal Kombat back in the 90s and even earlier this decade with the first one that came out in 2021. That said, the plot is the plot, and I'll leave it at that. But I'm not sure if there's going to be a Mortal Kombat 3, but that's what I want to ask you. I mean, with what you're hearing or what you're seeing, and do you think that Warner Brothers, Paramount will actually go and delve into Mortal Kombat one more time on a movie theater?
I think that as long as there's still a desire for it, even if it's not super profitable, because again, it didn't cost them a lot of money to make the movie. So even if it's not, as long as the risk doesn't outweigh the reward, right? The question becomes, can you damage the brand if they put out another Mortal Kombat? And I don't think that, considering how it's been received, because it's got relatively favorable reviews. I mean, again, it's not winning any Oscars, but it's got some pretty favorable. It's got relatively favorable reviews, 6s, 7s, some 8s. So it's not doing bad as far as the general population thinks, critic wise. As far as the dollars, it's not going to rake in a ton of dollars, and that's unfortunate. But I guess my point is, as long as there's no damage to the brand, then I don't necessarily see them having a problem with doing a third. As long as as long as it can at least break even. Um, like I said, as long as it can break even, it doesn't damage the brand in any way, shape, or form. If it damages the brand, if they feel like the second one really just didn't do the brand any justice, I think they have bigger fish to fry, like maybe figuring out a better formula than what they have with Mortal Kombat One. But that's another conversation for another day. I I can see them still putting out a third film. I think you have to. I think what will really help them, obviously, spending more time with the main characters and then actually kind of maybe following the story a little bit. They sideline characters that shouldn't necessarily be sidelined and focus on characters that aren't really part of the more not aren't part of the Mortal Kombat games. But if you look at the mythos of the Mortal Kombat series, there are other characters who are traditionally focused on, and there's a reason that they're traditionally focused on them, and they're what a lot of people who want to see Mortal Kombat probably want to see focused on. And so, if we can maybe get back to that, I think they kind of started to right the ship with that character that they pretty much went from having screen time in the first one to 5 minutes worth of screen time in the second one. I won't spoil anything because it's still a new movie, but they're starting to kind of right that ship a little bit. But I think you really have to get down and telling the story that people want to see. And if they can get to the point where they're telling the story people want to see and actually like stick with it, then maybe they have a better chance. But it's up in the air, man. I mean, they're not making a lot of money. They haven't lost any money, so there's that. But they're not making a lot of money either. So I wouldn't necessarily have a problem seeing Mortal Kombat 3. But I can absolutely see them be like, you know what, we're gonna stick to the games. Let the games do the talking. I
Well,
was a huge
they
fan of Mortal Kombat.
and I don't think it's a big spoiler to tell anyone out there. They set it up for a third movie at the
Yeah,
very end,
they did.
which is not surprising. That's typical Hollywood. We'll see if that it finally gets done or not. But again, I'll watch it if that's the case, and they bring out a third one. Or they could do just what they did originally and just date it and put it back on streaming and do it as a streaming movie instead, which I think would probably be a bigger hit for them if they did it that way. But we'll wait and see. Again, by the time that Mortal Kombat 3 comes out, it'll be under the Paramount banner and not under the
Mhm.
Warner Brothers banner, or it might still be under the Warner Brothers banner, but it'll still be Paramount pulling the strings on it as far as exactly what takes place and if it takes place. So we'll see if Mortal Kombat 3 is a done deal or not. But again, the performance is especially overseas, it's underwhelming to say the least as far as the numbers are coming back. So again, it's very up in the air. But if you have thoughts and you want a Mortal Kombat 3 to come out, please let us know, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. But before we hit the break, the half-hour break, my friend, I did want to ask you your thoughts on WWE Backlash. And again, that's something that took place last weekend. I know we didn't get a chance to catch up before then, but some notable things happened. I guess the fact that the Jacob Fatu coming of age, getting his first main event against Roman Reigns wasn't quite successful, but still managed to go ahead and make a great name for himself going forward. Asuka and Io Sky, obviously, I have a lot of personal thoughts on that, but the fact is, Asuka, I think it's been one of the greatest female performers of the century. She's the most. I looked it up. She is probably the leading Japanese wrestler, male or female, the most successful, most acclaimed. Gran Hamada had a lot of titles in Mexico, but they were all middleweight, light heavyweight, things of that nature. Asuka competed at the very highest level at WrestleMania, for the WWE, NXT, undefeated streak, and has won the top title for women in this business on 4 occasions, as far as the term, plus 5 tag team title reigns. So I would argue that she has had the most successful career for any Japanese wrestler, male or female, outside of Japan. And I'll leave it at that. But There are now questions surrounding what she will do with her career because she lost to Io Sky. I've heard everything from semi-retirement to going back to Japan for personal reasons, that she will be back at some point in time, but she clearly, by her statements and by her actions on Monday Night Raw, left it to that she is going to be gone for some time, either which way. Your thoughts on Backlash? Of course, Danhausen, he's got to get his victory with all the mini clone Danhausens. I know that didn't get over as well as people. Every time that something doesn't get over initially with Danhausen, he will make it get over. And by the time that the match was done, everybody was really happy that Danhausen won. So then that doesn't stop people from buying his merchandise, as we've talked about before. Also as well, Seth Rollins versus Braun Breaker. I told you, just nobody really cares about Seth Rollins. They care about the song. And Braun Breaker gets his big win as well. Your thoughts though on it, as far as Backlash and what Backlash. That's got got it in my head. Yeah, Danhausen got that in my head as far as Backlash. But your thoughts, my friend, on Backlash, and do you think that it was fruitful in advancing anything as far as the storylines for WWE is concerned? Oh wait, another WWE ad is coming up right now.
There it is. That's what it was very good at doing, was putting out ads. I had a lot of mixed reactions about Backlash, and
that was a great match though by Io Sky and Asuka.
Oh
and
my
that
goodness,
should have
that was
been
probably the best match of the night.
And that should have been on WrestleMania. That would have been the best
Yes.
women's match of the entire weekend if it had been on WrestleMania.
And that's probably why it wasn't on WrestleMania, because that would have been the best match of the entire weekend as far as women are concerned. Here's my thing with Backlash. This year's Backlash seemed very much like a reset. Nothing was really advanced. You didn't really have any major storylines finished, except for, if you want to say Io Sky's one, and the Silk was that was kind of finished. And you can say that, but I don't feel like anything really got propelled forward. Trick Williams beat Sami Zayn again. Obviously, we know the WWE is very, very hard behind Trick Williams at this point. And rightfully so, the guy is charismatic. The guy, he has the it factor now. It's just a matter of putting him in position to be successful. So I'm not upset about it. I think that their focus seems to be much more on like long form storytelling. And I think the good about that is that you're setting yourself up for a good end game, especially when it comes to fruition at WrestleMania. But there's so many opportunities for burnout. There's so many opportunities for us to become bored with the product and bored with the angle that they're going with, that you got to know when to rein it back in. And I think WWE was way too focused on long form storytelling. And the problem also with that is that there's just not enough screen time for everyone. Obviously there were a lot of big cuts that happened prior to Backlash, a lot of big cuts, a lot of names that some of them were surprising, some of them maybe weren't so surprising. But I think creatively they're just playing it really safe. And that can kind of go one or two ways. They're very much into their comfort food era right now with, like you and I discussed after WrestleMania, they went back to kind of comfort food. Roman Reigns is the champion again. They're kind of doing a pseudo bloodline thing once again and having them involved. And now you got Rhea Ripley back as a champion. Again, we're looking at comfort food. They seem like they're being very, very, very safe right now. And I think that's rewarding their shareholders, so to speak, but it's not really taking care of the fans. And what I mean by that is the excitement is not there. The anything can happen. I remember that tagline vividly from playing No Mercy in WrestleMania 2000 back in Nintendo 64. I remember one of the things right before the credits started rolling was that Jim Ross said, anything can happen in the WWE or WWF. And that used to be true. It felt like anything could happen in WWF. It doesn't feel like that now. It feels very formulaic, It feels very paint by numbers. And unfortunately, the problem with that is that it's very, very predictable. Again, you have some standouts, and you always will have standouts. Io and Asuka it was an incredible match. I don't think I have a better way to say it. That was just an incredible match. It was an incredible match between two incredible performers, an emotional ending. I think that's the kind of catharsis that you want in a wrestling match. That's the kind of catharsis I would want in a wrestling match. Very, very, very strong match. And then Braun Breaker having his match against Seth Rollins again, like you mentioned, maybe people don't really care about Seth Rollins; they just care about the music. I'm ready for Breaker to go by Stein at this point. Just let it happen. But it just overall the show felt very, very safe. And we're spending a lot of money to be watching a lot of safe stuff. And then all the advertisements, having ads in the middle of entrances, like this is all stuff missing an entrance because of ads. I think this is very disrespectful to the wrestler. I think it's very disrespectful to the performers. If you want to have an ad or a commercial in the middle of the match, that's one thing. But their entrance is their time to really connect with people, connect with the audience, connect with the fans, connect with the people that are watching at home. I think it's very, very disrespectful to run an advertisement.
Actually, I can deal with an ad during a Roman Reigns intro because that takes so dang long. He takes his
Takes what,
time
8
coming down
minutes?
the lane.
Yeah,
Takes
if
his
he's still
he
coming
takes his
down.
time coming down to the ring.
But to be fair, he already has this connection with the crowd. I mean, I guess I said it to say I just feel like it's disrespectful,
No, it
to
is. It is. I was
to
just joking on that, but he does take his time coming down to the ring.
absolutely. But they tell you that they tell you to take your time. They tell you gotta eat up a little bit of time. So
We're running a few
soak it
ads,
in.
Roman. Yeah, take
Yeah,
your time coming out.
take your time. We gotta have a few commercials, so take your time coming out.
Yes.
I just always find it to be a little disrespectful. So I think that again, we get to this point where we're dealing with $1 billion industry right now. We're no longer talking millions. We're no longer talking thousands. We're talking about billions of dollars, and there are a lot of people that you have to appease when there are that many hands in the pot. And quite for better or for worse, WWE is now in the hands of a lot of people as opposed to being under the control of one person. And so the product is going to be a little bit more reflective of many more hands in the pot. And this is what we're getting. So we have to be willing to accept it. And we can play the whole yesteryear and which era was better, and the aggression era or the attitude era, and all that is great, but it doesn't change the fact that here's where we are now, and we have to find a way to live with it. So overall, I thought the show was probably like a 6, maybe a 7 out of 10, 6, 7 out of 10. Not that great, but it wasn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. There were definitely been worse shows. I think it was better than night one of WrestleMania, but that's about it. So it was okay.
Well, again, I thought Io Sky and Asuka had a better women's match than any women's match that was on WrestleMania, and I'm
Mhm.
just ashamed that they were not given that type of showcase as far as that's concerned. But again, that's another argument or another discussion for another, because that's like an hour argument in and of itself on why that happened.
Yeah.
Because I could go into it and I would really lay into the WWE. So I'll just skip it for now. But again, backlash is something that I think, again, it is just a side PLE, but it was nice, I thought, for what it was. But again, it wasn't really doing a whole lot to
Um,
advance or complete or conclude any major storylines. It's just only was something that serves as a monthly appetite for people out there to get their PLE fixed. So again, for what it was fine, but we will wait and see what happens coming out of it for Io Sky, for Roman Reigns, and then also as well for Braun Breaker. What you do with the momentum that they should have coming out of it, we will wait and see what happens. But again, looking forward to hearing your thoughts on the WWE as we get into the summer months. Again, it's obvious that the steam sometimes just doesn't keep rolling quite as well in the summer months. That's a traditionally yearly thing, but we'll see if they can keep it going into SummerSlam. SummerSlam's now a 2-day deal. SummerSlam is now as almost a big a deal as WrestleMania as far as the money, investment, time they're putting into it. So they better keep that train rolling. Will they? We'll find out. I know a lot of people are really getting upset about the advertisements and the abundance of advertisements. But as I said on the State of Pro Wrestling, TJ, that if these were older promoters, the Vince McMahons or the Bill Watts, or I don't want to say Ted Turner because he wasn't a promoter. Rest in peace. I know he passed away recently. But the promoters, the guys who are running, all these ones that they've talked about favorably over the course of many years. I know a lot of them, as far as from my experience and listening to their backgrounds and listening to the history of how they treated their employers or how they treated the money. Had they been given the opportunity to go ahead and commercialize itself, I think many of these promoters from the past would try to do many of the same things. TJ would try to do many of the same things in order to go ahead and maximize it. Because again, with this corporation TKO, they're very blunt. They're very honest in the way they deal things, and the fact that they are trying to wring every dollar out of everything they can out of WWE and UFC.
Yeah, I don't think that
whether it's good or bad, I'm just telling you, it is what they're going to do. And if it was in the past, and one of these owners or one of these promoters from the past had that opportunity, I think many of them would have wanted to have do many of these same things.
I don't dispute that. I don't dispute that at all. I mean, at the end of the day, they're about making money, and I get that. I think where there may be a little bit of pushback, and Vince was one of those guys that pushed back against a lot of that stuff too. He pushed back against the advertisement. He pushed back against some of that, and there could have been a lot more money had when Vince was doing it.
He budgeted for families in a sense for some of the tickets. I will give you that, but the commercialism, he did run ads on his shows in the 2010s.
He did, but I mean, if we look at running ads versus having advertisements sitting in the middle of the match, like in regards to we're wrestling on a mat that has Prime. Or what's the energy drink?
There's like Prime, right? There was at WrestleMania 7 different ones. Now he didn't do it to that egregious amount, but
and that's my point.
He did have some on the ring.
Absolutely, yeah. I won't dispute that, but there was still integrity to the product. I guess is my point, and I feel like that's starting to that's starting to erode that integrity of maintaining that gone. Performance.
That went through the door. That got tapped out and left the arena, my friend.
TKO'd, right? It got TKO'd. Yes. That's my point. It's like that's my point. The integrity of the show has changed, and because of that, the feeling of watching it has changed. And I think that's where we start to lose people. We understand the money aspect. We understand that there's more money in advertisements. We get that. But like I mentioned earlier, there's a way to do it. Disrespecting by doing an entrance or an advertisement in the middle of an entrance. I think it's just very, very tasteless. There's ways to do it. There's blocks to do it in. But a lot of the things that we used to get a lot of the backstage segments with Mean Gene Okerlund and all the people that would have things to say in the back, like just that it gave it personality, it gave it something extra, it gave it soul. And right now, if you're looking at the product feels kind of soulless. It feels like it's very, very paint by numbers and very, very much we just have to check all these boxes and hit all these marks, and and that's kind of it. And that's the unfortunate truth to when sometimes you become a bit bigger. You have to play it to a lot more people, and you have a lot less freedom and opportunity to really be who you want to be, or tell the stories or things the way you want to tell the stories or do those things. So it's unfortunate, but I don't disagree with you. I think if they had the chance to do it back then, they probably would have taken advantage of some of those. But I can also say that there are some things that I'm sure they had opportunity to take advantage of that they still opted not to. So I'd like to hope that the integrity would have stayed somewhat, even if they had opportunity to do some of those things.
Okay. I hope you're right, my friend. I hope you're right, because some of those wrestling promoters from the past were pretty sleazy themselves, and I'll just
no doubt
indeed. But if you have thoughts on Backlash, let us know your thoughts. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. My friend, though, PlayStation getting into the video game world, want to go ahead and hit your thoughts on that. Is PlayStation and it's pretty much died down. But by the time
Yeah.
when I originally you and I talked about the DRM issue, because for games purchased, I believe from March to now, if you purchase a game on PlayStation Store digitally, it would give you you have to turn
Check
on
in
and
essentially.
go online, within 30 days, or else they would take it away from you. And they did this to combat piracy and things of that
Mhm.
nature, jailbroken PS5s and all that. Your thoughts, though, on the PlayStation DRM issue? We say it from the sense, yes, for now that the fire has been put out, and even though PlayStation did a horrible job of messaging this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it just was a bad representation on their part, it got put out. The fire got put out for now, but there's a larger debate when it comes to DRM, digital rights management, as far as when you purchase something digitally, you don't own it. And that's the overall meaning behind DRM, is because the fact that you don't own these things when you buy them digitally, even though most consumers believe they do. They actually, in a lot of cases, do not.
Well, I think there's this idea of ownership and what ownership really, really means. When you buy a game physically, you still don't own the game. You own the physical representation of that game. You own that disc, but you still don't own the game. So even if you were to go online and they decide to brick that game's going to be bricked or whatever the case may be. So I think we have to be very clear that you don't ever really own a game. You own the cartridge, or you might own the disc that the game came on, but you don't technically own the game anyways. I think that's number one. Number two is that Sony absolutely was they were they were testing the waters. I truly believe they were killing two birds with one stone. They may have actually genuinely be looking at combating piracy. And I don't dispute that per se, but I definitely think that they were testing the waters to see if they could get away with this whole digital rights management and having people check in every 30 days, seeing what would work. They threw enough crap on the walls to see what would stick, and I think they allowed the fan uproar to get to a point where it's like, okay, we need to walk this back. We need to kind of show our hand, if you will, because they absolutely stayed silent. If this was truly what they were trying to do, combat piracy and find ways to get around jailbroken PS5s or whatever excuse that they wanted to give, then they would have said that from jump. That would have been the exact response that would have been the easiest thing to do. That would have been a smart thing to do. And then you get away from this entire potential PR nightmare. They were trying to see exactly what they could get away with. And once it was kind of known that you couldn't get away with it without people noticing and getting up in arms about it, then they kind of walked it back. And kudos to them for being willing to try it and then walk it back. Like, okay, all right, we were just kidding. I kid. Look. I'm good. I'm just joking. We were just playing. Have fun with your games. They're yours. They absolutely walked it back, and that's okay too. Sometimes you have to be willing to take that L. And you know what? We were wrong. I remember when EA had put out something saying people don't play single player games, and then they released Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order or something. I think it was Jedi Fallen Order that they had released, and all of a sudden everybody was ranting and raving about it, and EA had to turn around and be like, "All right, our bad. We didn't know what we were talking about." I don't think there's any harm in doing that. I think here's where Sony looks bad, or here's another way, or bigger way maybe that Sony looks bad over the course of this generation. They've appeared very greedy, very money hungry, very focused on their dollar, um, and just not very player focused or player friendly, if you will. And people have started to really take notice. I think that the one thing I've always thought was that PlayStation was always going to be one of the most popular gaming consoles because it's a PlayStation. Anytime you talk to most people, they say, "Oh yeah, I play PlayStation all the time," or whatever the case may be. Xbox was never one of the first ones that people would say. It was usually always PlayStation. Because, and I think it was based off of just the name of PlayStation, just who they are, who they've been. They've always been a more popular name, popular brand. But the problem with that is that as they've been the most popular, they haven't necessarily had reasons to continue to be as innovative, continue to push the envelope, if you will. And I think that it can get very 2K like, where you don't really feel like you have a legitimate challenger, so you can kind of just do whatever you want to do, and people are going to just fall in line because that's what people do. They fall in line. Um, and the problem with that is we as a consumer are the ones that we ultimately pay for that. We're the ones that have to deal with the fact that there's no innovation. We have to deal with the fact that there's no new games. We have to deal with the fact that there's no new IPs and new products that are really pushing the boundaries of what these consoles can do, because we've just been accepting mediocrity for the last 4 or 5 years. And it's unfortunate that Sony would even take this opportunity to try to implement something so egregiously tone deaf, right? In this particular climate right now, it really shows how arrogant they have become, and it shows that they really don't have our interests at heart. And I don't know if any corporation truly has our interests at heart, but it was proven that they don't have our interests at heart. And I think it's going to be interesting to see the next generation how that plays out. I think Xbox, I know we're not talking about Xbox, but I think Xbox has positioned themselves to be, the underdog, but have a real fighting chance with this new leadership and doing a lot of things right and bringing a lot of things back to fruition, and trying really hard to reestablish Xbox as a brand and not just a subsidiary of Microsoft, not just a part of Windows gaming, but Xbox is its own thing. And I think that they're really trying to push that. So it's going to be interesting to see how this next generation plays out with that. Um, but Sony absolutely was trying to pull a fast one. And I said, okay, well, let's see if we can get away with it. And they came to find out that they couldn't without us noticing, and causing an uproar about it. So they kind of just backpedaled and said, okay, all right, you guys win, for now. But in the background, they're twiddling their fingers and patiently waiting for us to fall asleep again to do it. So we'll see.
We will see, my friend. But again, I think this is going to be a larger concern of the DRM debate as it continues to spread its love. I know that we talked about the DRM debate long ago with the fall of the Xbox One before it even came out, because they were so in love with DRM. It's something that will rear its ugly head again at some point. It's just a question of when, not if. And if it becomes the norm, I don't think it's going to go as well or as smoothly as both PlayStation, Xbox, Steam, what have you, plans it for, as far as increasing the limits of what DRM can do and not do. But we will have to wait and see. But if you have thoughts on PlayStation's DRM issues, please let us know. Popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Speaking on the fact of stuff related to Steam, Xbox, and then also Nintendo as well, the leaks are just going all over the place
Oh
as far as I'm
yeah.
concerned. I mean, people are playing Forza Horizon 6, which is not coming out till next week. I said the 19th. I said the 16th the other day. It's actually the 19th that it's coming out. Steam, people are already getting leaks on the availability and price of the Steam machine. With Nintendo, it's already leaks of the new Star Fox,
Mhm.
and also as well Zelda Ocarina of Time remake. Man, there used to be a day when they used to keep this stuff all under wraps. That day is long gone, seemingly, my friend.
I don't know if these are real legitimate leaks or if these are just them putting stuff out and trying to get excitement built. The way I've always looked at leaks is if it garners excitement, then it was a success. I look at the Ryan Reynolds leak of the Deadpool footage, the leak of the Deadpool footage. And it got people excited about the property, got people excited about the movie, and it ultimately ended up being a very, very successful leak. And I say that to say, um, I was excited about the Legend of Zelda leak. I was excited about the Star Fox leak. I'm excited about other story leaks. Now, as far as the games actually being leaked, if you're looking at the Forza Horizon debacle, if you will, those things are unfortunate. And when we're living in a digital world, and some of those things can kind of fall through the cracks and whatnot. And I think that they were very swift in how they wanted to handle that. And there was some pretty hefty bans and like they definitely showed, hey, it's not worth it. If you want to play this game, or if you want to play that game, if you can play a game if you want to, but it's not going to be worth it for you. So, I mean, they at least jumped out onto it and made it a big deal. But as far as things leaking out to the press or leaking out, I think it helps garner excitement. Personally, I don't really have a problem with that. I think when some things leak out, as long as they're not things that are going to completely destroy the experience for anybody, I don't want the spoiler for Avengers Doomsday leaked. Yeah, I would prefer that not happen. But um, when it starts to build excitement about things like that, I don't have a problem with that. I don't dislike it. But yes, we are definitely in a different day where leaks seem to be a dime a dozen. I just don't think they're as accidental as people want to make them out to be. Personally, I think these are very, very well planned and well thought out leaks of information, or pieces of information that happen to slip, quote unquote, through the cracks at the right time to garner the right amount of interest and the right amount of intrigue. So leaks, quote unquote. Yeah.
We'll see what happens with these leaks, but yeah, some people are up in arms about it, but it is what it is. I mean, and you're going to see more leaks. The GTA 6 leaks are
Yeah.
obviously getting Rockstar upset, but if you have thoughts out there, let us know on these leaks. But before we head on out, before we head to a retro review, Lego Batman is coming out next week. Lego Legacy of the Dark Knight, I believe is
Yeah.
the full title of it. Um, I know the Lego series as a whole, it's just this under the radar series. It sells whatever they attach to it, whether it's Horizon Zero Ridge, Lego Undercover, Lego Batman, Lego, anything that they've attached to Lego for the developer, Traveler's Tales, I think, or something like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah, they've done a really great job in just perfecting the Lego atmosphere and really getting these IPs to really say Lego Lord of the Rings games and whatnot.
Hmm.
Yeah. So your thoughts on the Lego series of video games as Legacy of the Dark Knight hits next week?
I think they've evolved. I remember playing the Lego games before, and at first they were kind of novelty, and then they kind of just got very, again, paint by the numbers. We talked about that before with product. They got very paint by the numbers and very much, okay, let's just kind of do this, do this, do this. But this one feels different. And here's why I say that. I've been watching a lot of footage about it, if you will. I've watched a lot of YouTube in regards to people discussing it and watching some of the gameplay. It feels very Arkham-like, which is not a bad thing. That's an amazing thing because we've been starting for an Arkham-like game since I don't know, Arkham, since the Arkham Knight or something of that nature. So I'm not upset about that. And honestly, it really kind of feels like it's paying homage to all of those games. Obviously, it's the legacy for a reason. I actually think it's pretty cool. I was not interested prior to watching a lot of these YouTubers and a lot of these advertisements and kind of breakdowns about it. But as I've watched more, I've at least gotten more interest. Now, I don't know if I'm going to turn around and buy it. I definitely don't think it's not going to be a day one purchase for me. I don't even know if it'll be a day 180 purchase for me. However, the fact that it's now on my radar when it wasn't anywhere near before is definitely proven that there's something there still. Excuse me. It's proven that there's something there still. And there's enough wonder, there's enough fun to be had with that where, the adults in us can enjoy the game while allowing the kid in us to enjoy the game. And honestly, isn't that what it's about? Isn't that what playing games is about? Being able to bridge gaps and being able to bridge generations. And I can get I can get enjoyment out of it as well as my kids can get enjoyment out of it. They can enjoy the fun, campy, colorful aspects of it and the simplistic gameplay. I can enjoy the homage that it's paying to the games of the past, the movies of the past, the series of the past, and really just kind of enjoying it. Honestly, I think that's a win-win for everybody personally. So I'm not upset about this. I'm actually thinking that this might be a very, very good thing for Traveler's Tale. I think they are still the ones doing it, but um, it's going to be very interesting. I'm pleasantly surprised, if you will.
What will also surprise you as far as in the world of Lego, because of now how Lego is perceived. And one day, I think either you, me, or Josh are we're gonna have to do a segment on the show, a full segment on the Lego collectibles phenomenon, and how valuable, quote unquote, they've become.
It's
Uh,
crazy.
Speaking of Lego, before we go ahead and head to your retro review real quick, you realize that Minas Tirith from Lord of the Rings, on which I'm wearing now the shirt, not just coincidentally, Minas Tirith was announced as far as in Lego format. 8,278 pieces later, it'll set you back $650.
Wow. I had no idea.
But you can have
No
your
idea.
own Minas Tirith, the
I'm
White
okay.
City.
I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay.
Are you sure you don't want to build that white tree on top of the big thing and all that? So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No,
okay,
I'm pretty good. Thank you.
okay. Have your own steward, jump off, flaming steward, jump off, just like in the movie. Okay, I guess not. But before we head on out, less than 5 minutes left, but always time for a retro review. What have you got on tap for us for a retro review before we head on out?
I've been playing a lot of Metroid lately. The game for me personally has been Metroid Dread. I know the game came out about 4 years ago, but it's been an amazing game. I bought it when it first came out, didn't really play it. I'm pretty notorious for this. Bought it when it first came out just to say I bought it. Played a little bit of it, started playing something else, completely forgot about it. And I don't know why, but over the course of the last, I don't know, week and a half, 2 weeks, my son accidentally deleted my save file for Metroid Dread. And I was nowhere near finished. I think I was probably 35% done with the game because I just didn't really play it. But I got so mad that he deleted my save file. So I said, you can't have my Nintendo again until I finish this game. And it usually just takes something to spark me. And I got sparked. And when I say I got sparked, I then went bananas on Metroid Dread. And it is honestly probably the best side scroller Metroidvania game that I played ever. It's got the most polish. It's got the action is top notch. I mean, it runs at a buttery 60 frames per second throughout the game. The cutscenes are in 30 frames per second, so that's a little bit jarring. But the gameplay is phenomenal. The controls are phenomenal. The storyline, if you actually pay attention to the story, and if you look at a retrospective of the Metroid timeline, it starts with the initial Metroid game back in 1986. But the payoff for Dread started all the way back then. There are things that were planted in these games all the way up through to get to Dread. Even things in Metroid Prime 4 that we didn't realize were planted years and years and years ago. They I don't know, this long form storytelling, man, this is like masterful stuff. Like they really planted these seeds 20 years ago for these games. And so I say that to say the review that I was really looking forward to doing was the original Metroid. I'm talking about the 1986 original OG on the Nintendo Entertainment System. That Metroid. Uh, when I think of games that really kind of changed how we look at games or how we play games, Metroid is probably one of, if not is probably one of the most influential games of all time. This idea of having to go back and go into areas that you couldn't get through before, but now you got a different item, so you get to go back into this area, and it changes the entire way you play the game. It just created it created its own genre in Metroidvania type style games. You wandered around, you got lost, you found upgrades, you realized the map looped back on itself. So it was kind of like a full circle moment. It was really just an amazing game, an amazing time. The atmosphere that it created, the music at the time, it was kind of creepy, kind of sparse, kind of eerie, kind of very it felt very isolated. Like it put you where you needed to be put. It made you feel the things that you felt. I remember playing the NES version, and I remember playing Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo, and that one took it and made an entire leap forward in that regard too. Cinematically, musically, thematically, it was just amazing. So I think for me, when I really think of games that created their own lane and kind of really reset the landscape, Metroid and the Metroid series and all together really is the game that sticks out to me the most. And so for my Metroid or for my retro review, I would go back and say play Metroid, play the original Metroid, play Super Metroid, play Metroid Dread. Just play Metroid. And I would honestly give the original Metroid, if I have to, 4.5 out of 5 Metroids. It was that good. It was that good. I enjoyed it that much. I go back and play it. I'll go back and play it today.
Awesome thoughts indeed, and a great episode. It is my good friend TJ Johnson, the guru of pop culture, with Metroid Dread as his retro review. If you have any thoughts on that, as well as the Metroid series, please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. So for my friend TJ Johnson, this is Gerald Glassford. Truly appreciate you being here. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.
Don't be alarmed. The quasi-shimmering light before you is a trans-dimensional gateway to other worlds, other voices, other thoughts, and other realities. Up feels like down, and down feels like the number 7 on a Wednesday morning. Don't worry. That quivering, blood-boiling sensation under your eyebrows is all a part of the charm. Welcome to the PCC Multiverse.